My name is Serena Caldwell. I am 34 years old. And for 9 years my family told everyone I was a server. Every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering at my parents' house in Millbrook, New Jersey. My mother would introduce me to guests the way you might mention a minor inconvenience, briefly, flatly, and with an undertone of apology. And my father, a man who grilled steaks with more tenderness than he ever showed me, would shake his head and say the same 6 words every single time. At least your sister chose a real path. They said it at Thanksgiving. They said it at Christmas. They said it in front of the neighbors, the Parkers, my cousins, and anyone unfortunate enough to ask what I did for work. What my sister stumbled on one night in January changed everything. And the 4 words I spoke through that intercom are something my mother has never fully recovered from. Before I take you back to where this all began, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a like. And if you are listening right now, drop your city and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you back 9 years to the night I told my mother I was walking away from the finance track. She did not speak to me for 12 days. I was 24, second semester of my junior year at Syracuse University, accounting and finance double major. The safe road, the one my mother, Carol, had mapped out for me before I even got my driver's license. I sat at the kitchen table and told her I was applying to the Culinary Institute of America. She set her tea mug down without making a sound. "You want to cook?" she said. "You want to throw away 3 years of tuition to cook?" I tried to explain. I told her about the summer I had spent volunteering at a restaurant in Providence, about the sous chef there who told me I had rare instinct, about how the entire world went quiet when I worked a line, the only place I had ever existed fully inside my own body, where my mind stopped spinning and my hands understood what to do next. She heard none of it. "You can cook at home, Serena. Cook at home. Your grandmother cooked at home. That is not a career, that is a hobby." My father, Raymond, came into the kitchen that evening. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. He did not pull out a chair. "Your mother worked 2 jobs to send you girls to college, and this is the choice you are making?" My sister Leanne was 28, already 2 years into a financial analyst role at a firm in Princeton. She sat in the living room the entire time pretending to scroll through her phone. She did not stand up for me. She did not say a single word. But I caught her expression as I walked past. It was not compassion. It was relief. Because I had just handed her the title of the only daughter worth mentioning. I loaded my car the following morning. Mom told the relatives I was taking time off to reassess. She could not bring herself to say the word culinary. 2 years later, I was in the prep kitchen at Harlow's in Montclair, New Jersey, peeling 50 pounds of parsnips at 4:30 in the morning. Harlow's was remarkable. A converted 1930s textile warehouse with original wood beam ceilings, reclaimed brick walls, and a 72-seat dining room that smelled like roasted garlic and thyme by 10 every morning. Farm-forward New American cooking, the kind of place where couples drove 45 minutes for the duck confit and returned the following week for the braised lamb shank. The owner was Vincent Harlow, 63 years old, former merchant marine, hands like iron hooks. He ran the kitchen with precision and zero tolerance for excuses. And he was the first person in my life who measured me entirely by what I put on the plate. One morning, 7 months into my prep cook position, he pulled me aside after service. "Caldwell, chef." He held out a white chef's apron, clean pressed, the Harlow's emblem stitched neatly across the chest. "Stop wearing the prep apron. You have earned this." I held that apron the way other people hold championship trophies. I put it on right there in the middle of the kitchen. I tied the strings twice because my hands were trembling. It smelled like starch and something that felt like a beginning. My phone buzzed in my locker an hour later. A text from my mother. "Leanne passed her CPA exam. Thought you should know." No question about how I was doing. No follow-up. Just a bulletin from the daughter who counted. I stared at the screen for about 8 seconds. Then I put my phone away, went back to the line and kept my apron on. Thanksgiving that year. My parents' dining room in Millbrook. The long walnut table. The good dishes. 14 people packed in shoulder to shoulder. My parents, Leanne, Uncle Douglas, Aunt Miriam, 4 cousins, and the Parkers from across the cul-de-sac. Mom made the introductions the way she always did, loudly and strategically. "Everyone, you all know Leanne? She just earned her CPA certification at Whitmore and Ellis. Applause. Leanne smiled her composed smile. And Serena is working at a restaurant over in Montclair. She said restaurant the way someone might say layover. Flat and temporary. Something to get through, not dwell on. My father carved the turkey. He did not glance at me when he said it. At least your sister chose a real path. The table chuckled. Not harshly. The way people laugh at a joke told so many times it becomes wallpaper. Something everyone walks past without noticing. I tried anyway. Actually, I was just promoted. I'm sous chef now. Mom cut straight across me. Oh lovely sweetheart. Leanne, tell everyone about that conference in Chicago. And just like that, the room moved on as though I had said nothing. As though sous chef were a phrase in a language nobody at that table had ever bothered to learn. Uncle Douglas, my father's younger brother, caught my eye from the far end of the table. He was the only one who had not laughed. He gave me a small nod. The kind that says I see you and I am sorry this is what it is. After dinner, while everyone drifted toward the living room, he found me in the kitchen putting away dishes. What is the name of the restaurant? Harlow's. I will have to stop in sometime. He did. A month later, he ordered the lamb shank, left a 35% tip, and never said a word about it to anyone. The years stacked up the way dishes do in a busy kitchen, relentlessly and without ceremony. Year 3 I became head chef. I called my mother to share the news. She said, "Are you still at that same place?" And then asked whether I could bring something sweet to Leanne's birthday brunch. Year 4, Harlow's received a feature in New Jersey Monthly. For paragraphs about the tasting menu. My name in print. I texted Mom the link. She never acknowledged it. Year 5, Leanne made senior analyst. Mom organized a celebratory dinner. I attended. I brought a bottle of wine. Dad introduced me to the Parker's adult son as the one in the restaurant business. He said it the way you might say the one who got a parking ticket. Slightly apologetic and mildly embarrassing. Year 6, Vincent Harlow turned 65. His knees were going. His wife wanted him home. He sat me down after a Saturday night close and said he was ready to step back. I want to give you first right of refusal, Caldwell, on the restaurant and the property. I asked him for the number. He slid a napkin across the bar. $3.8 million. I did not sleep that night. I sat in my one-bedroom apartment above a bookshop and ran projections on a spreadsheet until 2 in the morning. Every holiday between then and now played the same script. Leanne's wins celebrated. My work tolerated. The extended family had learned not to ask about me because the answers made my mother visibly uncomfortable. So I stopped offering them. I stopped explaining sous chef and head chef and food cost margins. I stopped sharing news about a life none of them had shown any interest in. By year 7, I had acquired something none of them knew existed and I intended to keep it that way. Vincent and I closed the sale in October. I was 31. The purchase included the restaurant, the kitchen, the dining room, and the complete 3-story building it occupied. $3.8 million. I financed it through an SBA loan, 7 years of savings scraped from every paycheck I had not spent on rent and utilities, and a quiet private investment from Uncle Douglas. $230,000 properly documented, a handshake, a notarized agreement, and a man who believed in what I was building before there was anything to point to. I registered an LLC, Caldwell Hospitality Partners. The deed was filed at the Essex County Clerk's office under the company name. Public record. Searchable by anyone with 5 minutes in a browser. Nobody in my family ever searched. The first thing I did as owner was convert the second floor into a private event venue. Wide plank oak floors, tall casement windows, seating for $99,500 per booking. The second thing I did was expand the wine program to 240 bottles, temperature controlled. The third thing I did was install a new security system at the front entrance. Camera and intercom. A monitor on my office desk showed whoever was standing outside. A button let me speak to them without opening the door. Elena Vasquez, my front of house director, 55 years old, had been at Harlow's since before I was hired. She was the only staff member who knew I was the owner. I told her on the day we signed. She looked at me for a long 5 seconds. "You bought the whole building." She shook her head slowly. "And you still help clear tables on a full house night." I shrugged. "Somebody has to." The deed was recorded. The LLC was active. The building was mine. And 30 miles away in Millbrook, my family was still telling people I waited tables. Elena asked me once the question everyone would eventually ask. Why not just tell them? I was reorganizing the dry storage, lining up cans of crushed San Marzano tomatoes by date. I did not look up. If I told them, what would actually change? They would know I have money. They would not know I have built something worth respecting. And that distinction matters to me. I had tested it once before. Year 5. I told my mother the restaurant was doing well, genuinely well. I wanted to share something real with her. Her response: "That is nice, Serena, but a restaurant is not a career." Leanne just put an offer in on a townhouse in Princeton. A townhouse, a 2-bedroom property that Leanne financed with a 30-year mortgage and her parents as co-signers, held up as proof of success. Meanwhile, I was operating a business that cleared $1.7 million a year, and my mother called it not a career. That was the moment everything solidified in me. Their approval was conditional. It required a title they could say at church without explaining. It required a salary they could compare to other people's children. It required a life that looked like Leanne's. I could not give them that version of success. I did not want to. So the silence became the strategy. I stopped trying to earn their recognition. I stopped trying to correct the record. I let them believe exactly what they chose to believe. And at every holiday, every offhand dismissal, every disappointed shake of the head, I quietly filed it away. Evidence of who they were when they thought I had nothing to show for myself. Elena shook her head whenever we talked about it. "You are running an experiment on your own family." Something like that. And they keep giving you the same result. Every single time. She set down a stack of menus and said nothing more. She understood. Some experiments are not about proving a hypothesis. They are about confirming something you already knew. The group chat appeared by accident on a Thursday in February. My phone lit up with a notification. A screenshot forwarded to me by Leanne, meant for her college friend Priya. She had hit the wrong contact. Alphabetical order. Reyes Priya. Caldwell Serena. I opened it at my desk, Harlow still quiet before the lunch prep rush. The screenshot showed a group thread labeled Family Central. 6 members. Mom, Dad, Leanne, Aunt Miriam, Cousin Brianna. I had never been included. The messages were from the previous week. Planning for Easter Sunday. Aunt Miriam. Was thinking of stopping by Serena's restaurant after the service. Anyone been? Any good? Mom, Miriam, please. It would be awkward. She would make a big fuss trying to show off. Aunt Miriam. I have heard it is actually quite lovely. Mom. Let us not encourage that. She really needs to find something stable, not keep playing at running a kitchen. Leanne had added a thumbs up. No text, just a small silent endorsement. I sat in my office and read through it 3 times. The deed framed on the wall to my left. The chef's apron mounted beside it. My mother's words glowing on the screen. Let us not encourage that. Playing at running a kitchen. Something stable. I saved the screenshot. I did not reply. I did not text Leanne to ask why she agreed. I did not call my mother. I saved it to a folder I had created on my phone. I named the folder for when I need to remember why. Then I closed the app, slid the phone into my jacket pocket, tied my apron, walked into the kitchen, and sent out 67 covers that night without a single mistake. The restaurant did not need my mother's permission to exist, and neither did I. The following June, Leanne was named Vice President of Client Strategy at Whitmore & Ellis. My mother hosted a dinner party, not a casual one, an occasion. Catered canapes. A printed menu card at every seat. Candles that smelled of amber and cedar and validation. 16 guests at the table. Extended family, the Parkers, 2 of Leanne's university friends, and me seated between Cousin Tyler and a gap where Uncle Douglas would have been had he not sent a last-minute message about a pulled muscle. Mom rose from her chair with a glass of rose. To Leanne, who has never stopped reaching for more. Our brightest light. She paused, looked across the table at me, smiled the way you smile at someone who tried their best but finished out of the rankings. And to Serena, we love you so much, honey. Leanne received a standing ovation. The acknowledgement of me got a polite murmur, and someone quietly resuming their salad. Later, near the dessert station, my cousin Tyler asked what I was up to lately. Before I could answer, my father appeared at my side, a hand firm on my shoulder, the weight of it final and familiar. "She works in a restaurant," he said. Then the words that had been playing on repeat for 9 years. "But at least her sister found a real direction." Tyler laughed the way people laugh when the alternative is asking a follow-up. Across the room there was no Uncle Douglas to catch my eye. In his absence, nobody in that space saw me at all. 6 months later, something happened that made that dinner party feel like ancient history. Something my sister did on her laptop at 11:52 on a cold Sunday night, 2 days after New Year's, that cracked open 9 years of comfortable assumptions the way you crack an egg on a marble counter. By year 9, Harlow's was consistently ranked among the top 15 restaurants in New Jersey. The Star Ledger had run a profile. New Jersey Monthly had listed us as a must-reserve dining destination. A food writer with 410,000 followers called us the best-kept secret in Essex County. I laughed reading that. She had no idea how accurate she was. The private event space on the second floor was booked 11 months in advance. Corporate dinners, rehearsal celebrations, charity receptions. 4 wealth management firms in Short Hills had us on retainer for quarterly client evenings, $9,500 minimum per event. Revenue that year reached $2.3 million. I paid myself $90,000, a modest salary by any measure, and reinvested the rest. Updated equipment, end-of-year staff bonuses, and a 401k matching program for anyone with 3 or more years at Harlow's. My morning routine never varied. Unlock the building. Take the stairs to my office. Check the frame deed on the wall, $3.8 million in black ink behind glass. Review the day's bookings. Look over the prep list. Tie the apron. Elena would bring 2 mugs of coffee up at 6:45. We would sit in the dining room before the first delivery arrived and go through the schedule together. "You are running a $2 million operation and your family thinks you take orders at a booth," she said one morning, stirring in sugar. "Accurate. You are fine with that? Tells me exactly what I need to know about them." She shook her head, but there was a quiet smile underneath it. As stubborn as Vincent ever was. The James Beard Foundation placed Harlow's on the semi-finalist watch list that spring. I did not mention it to anyone at home. I printed the letter, had it framed, and hung it beside the deed. Another piece of evidence nobody had asked to see. The article came out in August. New Jersey Business Monthly, a regional spotlight on independently owned ventures. Paragraph 5. Caldwell Hospitality Partners LLC. Principal Serena M. Caldwell has built one of Essex County's most profitable independent restaurant operations, anchored by the critically acclaimed Harlow's in downtown Montclair. My full legal name in print, indexed immediately on Google. Elena dropped the magazine on my desk like a subpoena. "Your family is going to find this eventually." "My family does not read New Jersey Business Monthly. It is online, Serena." One search. She was right. 5 words into a search bar. That was all it would take. My name, the LLC, the property assessment, the county records, everything accessible to anyone with a browser and mild curiosity. I thought about calling my mother that afternoon, telling her myself on my terms in my voice before an algorithm did it for me. But then I remembered the group chat, playing at running a kitchen. Let us not encourage that. No. I had given them 9 years of chances to ask me a real question, to look up the restaurant, to visit, to walk through the front door and order something off the menu the way Uncle Douglas had done, quietly and without an agenda. They chose not to every single time. The article sat on the internet like a slow-burning fuse with my name at the center, waiting for someone in my family to finally go looking. I went back downstairs. I had 70 covers to get through and a new line cook to train. The fuse could burn at its own pace. My mother did not merely overlook my career. She actively curated the story everyone else heard. Uncle Douglas's wife, Patricia, relayed a conversation she had overheard at a church fundraiser. A woman from the congregation had asked Carol about her daughters. "Oh, Serena? She is fine. She just loves working with people." Pause. Smile. Some of us are simply drawn to that kind of life. Drawn to that. As though I had been biologically predisposed to carrying water glasses instead of building something of my own. Patricia called me that same evening. "I figured you should know what is being said." I thanked her. I did not call my mother. There was nothing left to say that the deed on my wall had not already made clear. Then came the holiday card. Every December, Mom sent out a family photo. This year, the image was taken from Leanne's promotion dinner, the one with the catered appetizers and the printed place cards. 16 people around the table. I was in the original photograph. I know because Leanne had posted it on Instagram. But in the card mailed to the extended family, I had been removed. Cropped out at the elbow. The frame tightened around Leanne at the center. Mom and Dad bookending her on each side like punctuation. I saw the card at Uncle Douglas's house. He had it on the refrigerator with a Sharpie arrow pointing to the cropped edge. Beside it he had written, "Serena was here." He noticed me staring at it. "One day your mother is going to feel the full weight of this," he said. "And I intend to be in the room when she does." I almost told him everything right then. Almost. But the test was still running and they had not stopped failing it. My life outside the restaurant was deliberately contained. I had converted the third floor of the building into a 750 square foot studio apartment. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchen I rarely touched because I ate almost every meal at the restaurant. Bookshelves lined 3 of the 4 walls. Cookbooks, business texts, and a surprising amount of short fiction. A rescue cat named Sage lived on the radiator shelf by the window. A gray tabby with a torn ear, found shivering behind the loading dock in my first winter as head chef. She had no opinions about business ownership. I dated occasionally. A contractor who oversaw the event space renovation. A sommelier from a bistro in South Orange. Nothing lasted, not because anything was wrong with them, but because the restaurant had claimed every hour I was willing to offer, and I was willing to offer most of them. The restaurant is where I put everything right now, I told Elena when she asked why I never brought anyone to the staff holiday dinner. She pointed at me with a bread knife. "That is not a sustainable plan," says the woman who has been in love with this building longer than I have been alive. She set the knife down. Fair point. I called Uncle Douglas every Sunday. He was the single thread connecting me to my family without the weight of a performance review. We talked about his garden, about baseball, about the restaurant. He never pushed me to come clean to anyone. He understood the purpose of the silence. Some evenings I stood on the 3rd floor fire escape looking out over the Montclair skyline, the church tower, the farmers market square, the stretch of South Park Street that had watched this building change owners, and now bore my name on the deed inside. I made this. The thought arrived quietly and without fanfare. No one gave it to me. No one believed I would. Somehow that fact made it heavier and more mine. Easter, my parents' house in Millbrook. I came straight from a brunch service because I had run out of convincing reasons to decline. I was still wearing my chef's apron beneath my coat. The white one, Harlow's emblem on the chest, the one I had been wearing since Vincent handed it to me across a prep counter years ago. I had not had a moment to change. Mom noticed it the instant I walked through the front door. Her eyes dropped to it like a compass finding north. "Please tell me you did not come wearing that." "I came straight from a shift, Mom." "Take it off. The Parkers are stopping by." "I do not want them to think you are," she stopped short. But the sentence finished itself in the space between us. "You do not want them to think your daughter works with her hands." Leanne was arranging tulips on the console table. She exhaled a short laugh. "Mom, it is just an apron, relax." But Carol's expression had already said what words could not. The apron was the thing she had spent 9 years trying to keep invisible. It smelled like labor and intention and a decision she had never forgiven me for making. I removed it, folded it deliberately, set it on the kitchen counter beside the breadboard. I sat at the table and ate ham and talked about the weather. When I got home that night, I went straight online and ordered a replacement apron. Identical style. Same emblem. I sent the old one to the frame shop. It came back mounted in clean black, and I hung it in my office between the James Beard letter and the deed. My mother had wanted it off my body. I gave it a wall instead. The email arrived on a Wednesday morning in early November, 6 weeks before the holidays. It came from Brianna, Aunt Miriam's daughter and my second cousin. We were not close, holidays and birthday texts at most. But Brianna was the kind of person who forwarded things without confirming the recipient list. On that particular morning, she forwarded an email thread she had clearly meant to send to her husband Colton. Instead, she sent it to me. Alphabetical contacts. Walsh, Colton. Caldwell, Serena. I opened it at my desk. Sage was asleep on the windowsill. The reply chain ran between 3 people. My mother, Leanne, and Aunt Miriam. Subject line: Holiday dinner logistics. Carol. I am thinking we seat Serena at the far end this year. She is 34 and somehow it still comes up every single dinner. Gerald had to explain twice last year to the Parkers what she actually does for work. If anyone asks, just say she works in hospitality. Sounds better than the alternative. Leanne, you are terrible for saying that, Mom, but I mean honestly she does kind of bring it on herself. Aunt Miriam. Carol, she is your daughter. I love her. But loving someone does not mean pretending that watching them tread water is not difficult. I read it through 3 times slowly. The way you read something you want to make sure you have understood correctly. Embarrassing. Bring it on herself. Tread water. Written in an email about holiday seating. Between the woman who raised me, the sister who grew up 2 rooms away, and the aunt who at least had the decency to push back a little. I did not cry. I did not reply. I did not text Brianna. I took a screenshot and saved it to the folder on my phone, the one labeled for when I need to remember why. Then I set the phone in the desk drawer, tied my apron, walked down to the kitchen, and plated 83 covers that evening without a single mistake. The restaurant did not care what my mother wrote in private emails. Neither did I. She wrote bring it on herself. My own mother, writing about Thanksgiving seating. If you have ever read something about yourself that you were never supposed to see, something that dismantled every last excuse you had been making for the people who should have been in your corner, you know exactly what it feels like to sit in that chair. Drop a comment if you have been there. And if this is landing somewhere close to home right now, the subscribe button is right there. I went to Thanksgiving. I sat at the main table. They did not seat me at the end. Too conspicuous, maybe. Or perhaps Aunt Miriam had applied more pressure than the email let on. Either way, I was placed between Dad and Cousin Tyler, directly across from Leanne, with a clear line of sight to my mother at the head. I brought dessert. Creme brulee, made that morning at the restaurant. Individual ramekins, torched at the table with a kitchen torch I pulled from my bag. Everyone reached for one. My mother lifted hers and studied it. Where did these come from? I made them this morning. A pause. A flicker of something moved across her face. Surprise, or maybe the first faint crack of recognition that the daughter she called embarrassing could produce something people pulled their chairs forward for. These are wonderful, she said, and set down her spoon. You should make a batch for Leanne's housewarming next spring. There it was. The compliment arrived and curved immediately toward Leanne. The acknowledgement bent into an assignment. You are talented enough to serve my other daughter's guests. I smiled. I said nothing about the email. No signal, no confrontation. I ate my turkey, answered gentle questions, helped clear the table afterward, standing at the same sink I had stood at for years, invisible by design. Brianna sat at the far end of the table. She did not once make eye contact with me. We both knew. And that silent understanding hovered between us the rest of the evening. I left at 9:30. The restaurant was dark when I got back. Sage was sitting in front of the door. I did not need my family to know I had read that email. I only needed to remember what I was worth to them before they knew anything worth knowing. Leanne began to crack around the holidays. I heard it from Uncle Douglas first. Whitmore and Ellis was in the middle of a restructuring. The strategy division, her division, was being assessed for redundancy. Corporate reorganization is what they call it when they need to eliminate expensive titles without using the word layoffs. Vice President of Client Strategy sounds untouchable until the firm decides strategy is overhead. Then it becomes the most costly chair at the table when the music stops. At the next family dinner in mid-December, Leanne was different. The composure was still there, but the current underneath it had changed. She laughed at Mom's comments half a beat late. She refilled her wine glass before anyone else had finished their first pour. Mom responded by reinforcing the narrative. Leanne is heading a critical rebranding initiative right now. She is absolutely central to the firm's direction. Leanne did not correct her, but her jaw tightened at the word central. I watched my sister from across the table and felt something I had not anticipated. Compassion. Not for what she had done to me over the years. The thumbs up emoji. The years of accepting praise constructed on my erasure. But for the position she was trapped in. Mom had built cages for both of us. Mine was the basement. Low expectations, no visibility, the particular freedom that comes with being overlooked. Leanne's was the pedestal. Total visibility, maximum pressure, the exhausting captivity that comes with being someone's only proof that they succeeded as a parent. For the first time I wondered whether my sister was also performing. Whether the corporate composure was for Carol's benefit as much as it was for LinkedIn. I did not have long to sit with that thought. Because 6 weeks later, Leanne was going to do something on her laptop that would alter the architecture of our family permanently. New Jersey Monthly published their annual dining awards in December. Harlow's won Best Restaurant in Essex County. Not recommended, not nominated. First place. The editors sent a photographer. She spent an afternoon in the dining room, the kitchen, and the event space. She asked to take a portrait of me in front of the exposed brick wall. Apron on, arms relaxed, no performance, just steady. The issue came out the second week of December. My face on page 53. My name beneath it. Serena Caldwell, chef owner, Harlow's. Elena brought 2 copies to the restaurant. She placed one in the front window and slid the other across my desk. Your name is in a magazine and your mother still tells people you are a server. Correct. This is either the most disciplined long game I have ever witnessed or the most heartbreaking. Why not both? That Friday I closed early and bought dinner for my entire team. 12 people around the best table we had. Elena made a toast to the owner who still mops the kitchen floor on slow Mondays. Everyone raised their glasses. Marco, the prep cook who had been with us since before I bought the building. Line cooks Devin and Amara, who worked doubles every weekend without a complaint. The new sous chef Jordan, who was learning what I had learned from Vincent, that a kitchen is a meritocracy, that the work is the only argument that matters. These were the people who actually knew me. Not as a server. Not as a disappointment. Not as the daughter who made the inconvenient choice. As someone who built something worth coming in for every morning. January 2nd, 2 days after the new year. The evening Leanne finally typed 5 words into a search bar. New Year's Eve dinner at my parents' house. Mom had put in real effort. New linen on the table, fresh eucalyptus down the center, candles arranged in clusters of 3. The Parkers were there along with Aunt Miriam, Brianna, Tyler, and Uncle Douglas, who had apparently made a full recovery from whatever had kept him from the previous celebration. Leanne was co-hosting, moving through the room with the ease of someone trained since childhood to make other people feel comfortable and important. During the appetizers, Mrs. Parker turned to me. Serena, what is the name of your restaurant? A group from my book club is looking for somewhere special. Harlow's. In downtown Montclair. Straightforward. No pitch, no plea, no attempt to make it sound like anything more than what it was. Mom materialized at my elbow. It is a charming little spot. Her voice carried the texture of a compliment being quietly suffocated. Serena has been there a long time now. She touched my arm the way you touch a child's drawing before setting it aside. Leanne was across the room, glass in hand, but I saw her pause. She had heard the name Harlow's. Something behind her eyes shifted. The particular expression of a person who has heard a word they cannot locate and needs to look it up. The evening moved forward. I left at 10:15, wishing everyone a happy new year. I was on the highway when my phone lit up on the passenger seat. Leanne calling. I let it ring. 11:52 at night. Leanne sat in the upstairs guest room at my parents' house, laptop open across her knees. I was not there. I did not witness it happen. But I know exactly how it unfolded because Leanne walked me through it afterward and because the search results do not disappear. She typed Harlow's Montclair, New Jersey. The first result was our website. Clean layout, professional photography, award banners across the header. Not the kind of site that belongs to a charming little spot. The second result was New Jersey Monthly. Best restaurant in Essex County. My photograph. My name beneath it. The third result was New Jersey Business Monthly. Caldwell Hospitality Partners LLC. One of Essex County's most profitable independent restaurant operations. The fourth result was the Essex County Clerk's Office. Property records. Building owner. Caldwell Hospitality Partners LLC. Principal Serena M. Caldwell. Assessed value. $3,800,000. Leanne told me later that her hands were shaking badly enough that she entered the wrong credentials to the property records portal twice before getting through. She called my mother. It was 11:57. Serena owns the restaurant. What are you talking about? She owns it. The restaurant and the entire building. That cannot be right. She is a server. Mom, her name is on the property deed. The whole building. The assessed value is $3.8 million. Silence. The kind that stretches across a phone line and fills a room until you feel it in your chest. Raymond's voice from down the hall. Carol? What is going on? Carol did not answer him. She was already pulling her coat off the hook. Get up. We are driving to Montclair. I was at the restaurant when they left Millbrook. New Year's Eve, past midnight. Harlow's was closed for the holiday, but I was there anyway, doing what I had always done when the outside world became too loud. I went to the kitchen. Inventory. Prep. The specific comfort of organizing things that do not move unless you move them. My phone was on the prep station counter. 3 missed calls from Leanne. 2 from my mother. 1 text from my father. We need to talk. 4 words that had never once preceded good news in the history of human language. I did not respond. I sat on my prep stool and looked at the kitchen around me. The stainless counter runs. The walk-in cooler humming to itself. The copper pots Vincent had left behind when he retired because he said they belonged to the building before they ever belonged to him. I texted Elena. Happy New Year. She had written an hour earlier. Whatever comes next, you built something real. I wrote back. Happy New Year. I think what comes next is already on the way. Sage was asleep in my desk chair upstairs. The deed was on the wall. The framed apron hung beside it. The intercom screen showed the empty sidewalk below. I made a cup of coffee. Decaf. I sat in my office. And I waited. At 12:19 in the morning, the intercom buzzed. I did not flinch. I looked at the monitor. 3 figures on the sidewalk in the January cold, staring up at a building they had never once visited. The security camera rendered them in grainy black and white, but I did not need color to read their faces. Carol stood nearest to the door. She was still wearing her New Year's Eve outfit, a deep burgundy wrap dress with a wool coat thrown over it in a hurry. Her hair was coming undone at the back. She had not stopped to fix it. Raymond stood 1 step behind her, hands pressed into his coat pockets. His posture communicated what he was unwilling to say out loud. He did not want to be standing on a Montclair sidewalk at 12:19 in the morning. He wanted to be asleep. But Carol had decided, and Raymond went where Carol pointed. Leanne stood furthest from the door. She had her phone in both hands, the property record still open on the screen. Her face, even through the low-resolution camera, looked pale. The building looked different from the outside at night. The original brick facade caught the glow of the street lamps. The restored windows reflected the amber light. The brass plate beside the entrance read Harlow's, established 2012 in clean block letters. By any standard, it was a handsome building. The kind that made you stop on a sidewalk and wonder who owned it. My mother pressed the intercom button. Serena, open this door right now. I watched them on the monitor. 3 people I had loved my whole life standing in front of something they had spent 9 years assuring one another did not matter. She pressed the button again. I set down my coffee. I placed my hand over the intercom control. I held it there for 3 seconds, and then I waited. I let the buzzer sound twice more. Then I pressed the button. 3 people on a sidewalk at midnight. Standing in front of a building they had told everyone was not worth a visit. Staring at a name on a property record they had told everyone did not matter. If you know what it feels like to be underestimated by the exact people who were supposed to believe in you before anyone else did, this next part is for you. Stay with me. I stood up from my desk, smoothed the front of my sweater, pushed the chair back from the desk. The framed apron was on the wall. The same chef's apron my mother had told me to remove at Easter. I had sent it to a professional framer and hung it in a simple black frame between the James Beard letter and the deed. It was not decoration. It was not a trophy. It was a record. Evidence that the thing she found most humiliating about me was the thing I was most proud of. The deed hung beside it. $3.8 million in assessed value. Black ink on cream paper behind glass. My name on the managing member line. Caldwell Hospitality Partners LLC. I did not rehearse a speech. I did not plan what I was going to say. I did not allow myself to imagine their expressions or replay any clever response I had workshopped in my own head over 9 years. That is not who I am. That is not who this restaurant shaped me to be. I breathed in for 4 counts. Out for 4. The way I do before every dinner service. The way Vincent taught me on my first full night running the pass. Then I walked down the hallway, past the private event space with its wide oak floors and the pendant lights I had chosen myself, down the staircase, through the kitchen, my kitchen, where the stainless counters caught the faint green of the emergency lighting, through the dining room, 72 seats, exposed brick, the framed reviews on the wall, the brass rail along the bar, the leather-bound wine binders set neatly at each two-top, to the front door. The monitor showed them still outside. Carol with her arms crossed, Raymond studying the sidewalk, Leanne reading something on her phone screen. I put my hand on the door handle. I did not open it. I pressed the intercom button instead. My voice came through clear and level. The same register I use when I call a ticket during a packed Saturday service. What do you need? Carol's head came up immediately. She looked straight into the camera lens. Serena, open this door right now. We saw what Leanne found. Do you own this? Is this yours? What do you need, Mom? I want you to let us in. I want to understand what we are looking at. Nothing extraordinary is happening here. This is where I work. This is what I have been doing. You simply never asked. Raymond stepped closer to the intercom. His voice was quieter than Carol's. Serena, just open the door. We need to talk. You have had 9 years to talk. You spent them telling people I was a server. I let that land. The intercom held a faint static between us in the cold. Nobody on that sidewalk moved. Leanne spoke last. Something younger in her voice than I had heard from her in a long time. Serena, please. Can you just let us in? 7 seconds. I counted them the way I count the window between when an order fires and when it needs to leave the pass. 7 seconds of cold air and silence. Then I reached down and opened the door. The January air came through immediately, carrying exhaust and frost and my mother's perfume. The same one she had worn to every family event since I was a child, unchanged. They stood in the doorway like people who had arrived at the wrong address and were still deciding whether to go inside. Carol's eyes were already moving across the dining room, cataloging, revising, adjusting 34 years of conclusions in real time. Come in, I said. They stepped through. I closed the door. I gave them the full walkthrough. The same one New Jersey Monthly had gotten. The dining room first. Refinished hardwood. Warm pendant lighting. Pressed white linen stacked on the service credenza. Framed awards mounted along the brick wall. Best restaurant in Essex County. James Beard semi-finalist watch list. 3-star recognition from the state's leading dining publication. Carol ran her fingers along the back of a chair. She did not sit. The kitchen. Commercial grade, 2 6-burner French ranges, a flat-top grill, 4 convection ovens, the walk-in with its inventory labels marked in my handwriting, the pass where I called every order every night. This is mine, I said without elaboration. Down to the wine cellar. 240 bottles, temperature and humidity controlled. A Burgundy collection I had been quietly building for 3 years. Up to the event space. Floor-to-ceiling windows over the town square. 90 seats. Booked through the following October. Raymond stopped in front of a framed article near the stairwell. New Jersey Monthly. My photograph. My name in the caption below. Chef owner. His voice when he finally spoke was rough with something he had not prepared for. How long have you had this? 3 years as owner. 9 years total with Harlow's. 3 years. Carol's voice had gone thin. You have owned this building for 3 years and you never, she did not finish the sentence. Because there was no version of it that did not explain itself. Leanne had not spoken since we entered the event space. She stood near the tall windows, her reflection hovering faintly in the glass above the dark square below. I could see her processing the numbers. VP salary against a property deed. A corporate title against $3.8 million of assessed real estate, and a fully operational hospitality business. The math did not favor her. She knew it and she knew I could see her knowing it. I said nothing else. I let the building say it. It had been saying it for 3 years. They had simply chosen not to listen. My office was the last stop. A clean desk, a practical bookshelf with management texts and culinary references, a reading chair in the corner. Sage's bed near the radiator, currently empty. She was somewhere under the desk, unimpressed by the audience. On the wall, 2 items. The deed, framed in plain black. $3.8 million. My name on the managing member line. And the apron. The white chef's apron my mother had asked me to remove at Easter. The one she could not stand the thought of the Parkers seeing. Framed and mounted beside the deed. 2 pieces of who I was. One in paper. One in fabric. Carol stared at the deed. I watched her eyes track across the document. Property description. Assessed value. Managing member. Serena M. Caldwell. Her phone slipped from her grip, hit the hardwood floor. The screen fractured from corner to corner. Nobody moved to pick it up. When did you? She started. 3 years ago. Vincent retired. I bought the restaurant and the property. The building. Her voice had gone to almost nothing. All 3 floors. Raymond had not stepped fully into the room. He stood in the doorframe as though the office were a courtroom, and he had not yet determined which side of the bar he belonged on. Leanne stood against the wall behind him, arms wrapped around herself. She had not said anything since the event space. The room was small. 5 people plus the cat somewhere under the desk. The silence pressed in from every corner, rising the way water rises, leaving less and less room for what had not yet been said. Carol looked at the apron on the wall, then at the deed, then at me. Her voice when it came was cracked through the middle. Why did you not tell us? I mean, we are your family, Serena. How could you keep something this significant from us? We had a right to know. I was sitting on the edge of my desk, arms folded, coffee mug behind me still warm from earlier. You never asked. 3 words. The same tone I used to tell a sous chef to let something rest longer. What do you mean? In 9 years, not once did you ask me what I was actually building here. You decided I was a server and you closed the file on me. She shifted. The tears came quickly. The kind that arrive with practiced precision in moments like this. We could have been part of this. We could have helped. You shut us out. Serena, you shut your own family out. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. Every holiday dinner. Every Christmas card with me cropped out of the frame. Every time you told the congregation I was just drawn to that kind of life. She flinched at the last one. Visibly. She had not known that I knew. You shut me out, I said again, and called it love. Raymond put his hand on her shoulder. The automatic response, steady Diane when the scene gets away from her. Except it was not Diane, it was Carol, and the gesture was the same. Carol pressed her palm over her mouth. The tears that came now were not the practiced kind. They were the kind that surface when you have finally run out of ways to reframe what you have done. I did not look away. I waited. Carol tried one more approach. I never wanted to hurt you. Her voice was unsteady. I was only trying to protect you from disappointment. I was trying. You wanted to seat me at the far end of the table at Christmas because I embarrass you in front of the Parkers. The room held its breath. Carol's crying stopped the way a light goes out. Where did you? Brianna forwarded the email chain by mistake. I let the word mistake dissolve. The one where you said I bring it on myself. Raymond looked at the floor. His hand fell from Carol's shoulder. Leanne from the wall. Mom. Carol's mouth moved. Nothing came for 4 full seconds. That was just venting. I did not actually mean what it sounded like. You meant it. And I am not saying that to punish you. I am saying it because it is true. And because it told me exactly what I needed to know. Something changed in Carol's face then. The guilt peeled back and something older and more fragile came through. My mother used to say similar things about me. Her voice had gone very small. About my job at the Woolworths counter. About the apartment in Patterson. She said I would never be more than where I started. She looked at the deed on the wall. I only wanted something different for you girls. Then you should have wanted it for both of us, I said. Not only for Leanne. That one reached her. I could see it the way you can see something drop into water by the rings that move outward from the impact. Carol had nothing left. She was standing in my office, in my building, in my restaurant. And for the first time in 9 years she had run out of narrative. Raymond moved. 2 steps into the office. Just enough to be inside the room. Serena. He stopped. Swallowed once. I am proud of you. The words came out rough and unsteady. He meant them. I could tell because they cost him something to say. Raymond only struggled with words when the words were true. I did not need your pride to get here, I said. I needed you to be kind. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at the apron, then at the deed, then at his daughter, sitting on the edge of a desk in an office above a restaurant assessed at $3.8 million. He had no answer. Because there is no answer to that. You cannot retroactively choose kindness. You cannot walk back 9 years of at least her sister found a real direction. I turned to Leanne. She had not moved from the wall. I did not know about the email, she said quickly. The whole chain. I swear. You sent a thumbs up to the message that said I bring it on myself. Leanne went pale from the collar upward. You were never cruel the way that email was cruel, I said. But you liked being the one who was celebrated. You liked that I was the baseline that made your accomplishments look more impressive. And you never once said anything on my behalf. That is not the same as you believed what Mom told you. That I was less. And you never went and checked for yourself. I let that stay in the air. Then I looked at my father. At least one of us found a real direction. Right, Dad? He did not answer. But his eyes moved to the deed on the wall and stayed there. The room was completely quiet. I stood up from the desk. I am not ending my relationship with this family. I am not closing the door on any of you. I am not here to collect what is owed. Carol looked up. The reflexive relief of someone bracing for exile and being offered something gentler instead. But I need you to hear what I am about to say clearly. I did not conceal this to humiliate you. I did not keep it private out of spite. I looked at each of them in turn. Mom, Dad, Leanne. 3 people standing in a room with a framed apron and a property deed and a sleeping cat and 9 years of accumulated choices. I kept it quiet because I needed to know whether you would value me without it. Whether you would treat me with the same respect you gave to Leanne when you thought I had nothing to compare. You are welcome here. You can eat at this restaurant. You can tell the Parkers. I do not need that from you anymore. I pointed to the apron. But that stays. Because that apron means more to me than anything you threw a party for. It means I built this with my own hands. Not an LLC. Not a property record. These hands. I held them up. 10 years of knife work in open flames, calloused at every joint, scarred across the knuckles. And the next time someone at a dinner table asks what I do, you can tell them the truth. Or you can say I work in a restaurant. Either way, I will still own this building when the sun comes up. I walked them to the entrance, opened the door. January air came in hard and cold. Happy New Year. They stepped out onto the sidewalk. Carol turned back once briefly. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, switched off the dining room lights and went back upstairs. Sage had come out from under the desk and was sitting in my chair with the authority of someone who had managed the entire operation from a distance and was waiting for a full debrief. I sat down, put her on my lap. The building was quiet the way it gets after a long service when every table has gone, every station has been wiped, and you can finally sit inside your own silence and feel the shape of what you have made. My phone buzzed. Uncle Douglas. Patricia heard something happened on the way home. You doing all right? I typed back. Better than all right. His reply came in under a minute. I have been waiting 9 years for that conversation. I laughed quietly. Alone in my office. Cat on my lap. Deed on the wall. Faint smell of residual coffee and candle wax from the dining room below. New Year's morning. For the first time since I was 24 years old, I did not drive to Millbrook. Instead, I opened the restaurant for my staff. A private brunch for the 12 people who had actually shown up every day. Elena, Marco, Devin, Amara, Jordan, the bartender, the host, the people who had never once asked me to explain or justify or downplay what I did for a living. I cooked eggs Benedict with house-cured salmon, fresh squeezed citrus mimosas, and a cardamom coffee cake from a recipe Vincent had given me on his last New Year's at Harlow's. Elena sat at the head of the table. She looked at me over her glass. How does it feel this morning? I thought about it the way you think about a question that deserves an honest answer. Like I finally stopped wearing something heavy that was never mine to carry. She raised her glass. Happy New Year, boss. Happy New Year. February came in gray and cold the way February does, stripping away whatever warmth the holidays left behind. My mother texted on the 11th. Would it be all right if we came for dinner sometime? Not can we explain. Not can we start over. Dinner. At the restaurant. I said yes. They came on a Tuesday. The quietest night of the week. 6 other tables occupied. The ambient sound of cutlery and low conversation. Carol was different. Not transformed. Transformation takes sustained effort, and usually someone willing to tell you the truth for years. But quieter. She read the menu without commenting on anything. She ordered the duck confit. She did not mention Leanne once. Raymond ordered the short rib. When the plate arrived, he cut into it, chewed slowly, and said, "This is exceptional." 2 words. No comparison. No qualification. No, at least your sister. Just 2 words directed at what was on the plate in front of him. I nodded. Thank you. Leanne sent a separate message the following week. Not to the family group. To me directly. I am sorry. Not for Mom. For me. For the emoji. For never asking. For 9 years of collecting credit that was built partly on making you smaller. I am sorry. It was not nearly enough. It was nowhere close to sufficient. But it was a beginning. And a beginning was something I had not had from her in a very long time. I did not rush to close the distance. I did not say it is fine or I understand or any of the phrases people use to make other people feel better before the work has actually been done. Those conversations would come. Or they would not. The right to decide belonged to me now. They have a standing reservation now. First Tuesday of every month. Table 7 near the window. I join them when I want to. Not because I have been summoned. The difference between those 2 things is the entire point. Here is what 9 years of staying quiet taught me. The people who genuinely love you will find you in the kitchen. They will sit down and ask about the sauce. They will come on a Tuesday because they want to, not because something finally forced them to. The people who love what you have accomplished will appear only after the deed has been filed. Both categories can be called family, but only one category earns a key. That is my story. 9 years. 1 building. 4 words through an intercom. If this reminded you that your value is not determined by who chose to believe in you, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. Leave a comment. Subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.